morning, everyone, and happy Friday. I hope you're all having a great Friday afternoon. I can't believe September is almost over, and IMTS happened 3 weeks ago. I think Erin and I were talking about that before we came on live. But if you are tuning in, please feel free to drop your name and where you're tuning in from in the comments. We are live streaming on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitch. Still haven't figured out the Instagram thing, so I'm working on that, so bear with me. And also, X, which was formerly known as Twitter, decided that they were going to charge people now to do live. So not doing that anymore. So if you're tuning in there, please hop on over to some of these other channels. But really excited for this conversation today because I met some of your colleagues at IMTS. You guys have a really cool name. CADDi just has the diction that I like in words. So Erin, thank you for joining me today. Can you start off by just introducing who you are and what role you play at CADDi?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here and talk to you today. I'm the director of sales at CADDi Drawer. We're a manufacturing software. And yeah, we'll get into kind of what we do. But yeah, joined the company earlier this year and really excited to kind of talk about my path. Yeah.
So you're technically a rookie.
At CADDi, yes.
Well, let's get into your history a little bit. What's your background and how did you kickstart your career to lead you to where you are now with CADDi?
Happy to talk about it. So, I'm originally from Houston, Texas, and I actually studied psychology at St. Edward's University in Austin. From there, I actually broke into kind of the tech world by getting my first tech sales job out in San Francisco. And I've been in San Francisco for 10 years now. I basically jumped from different companies, learning different skills in tech, and eventually landed in the manufacturing space. Before CADDi, I worked at a company called Fictive for nearly 7 years. And I really kind of learned on the job everything manufacturing. And it was a really exciting time. When I joined that company, I knew next to nothing about manufacturing. And I really leaned into my, curiosity and, my colleagues at that company that were very, well-versed in the industry and learned a lot very quickly. So, that's kind of how I got into manufacturing. I was always kind of a curious kid as well. I definitely wanted to know how things were made and, definitely wanted to just understand how products were developed once I got into Fictive, and it just kind of, spiraled from there. And here I am now. Yeah.
I find it interesting that you started out though in psychology because I feel like there is a strong connection there between how products are made and how people
Absolutely
react. So can you kind of go over some of the similarities that you have discovered between the two during your journey? Because I think it's fascinating.
Definitely in sales, it's, a skill that you use, trying to understand how people are thinking and interpreting behavior and what's next kind of in the conversation to progress it. So I definitely use that, in the, manufacturing sales side of things. But I would say the overlap and wondering why things are made the way they are and how people kind of operate, I would say there's definite overlap.
I think that's so cool. I think it's just there's a whole psychology behind why people buy things too, or what type of mood they're in can affect what they buy. I know I'm one of those people that the more hungry I am, I should not go to the grocery store because then I just buy huge amounts of food that I don't need. We got Dave tuning in from Indiana. Hi, Dave. Thank you for joining us today. Coming from a non-manufacturing space, and I think even coming from a technology background, before technology and manufacturing were very separated and siloed. And it wasn't until this IMTS, they really highlighted a lot of technology. IMTS, for those who don't know, started out as just a machining show where people went to look at new machines and buy new machines. And I believe in 2022, they started touching on more of the technology side of things. But this year, they really highlighted it with some of the sponsors and some of the other brands that were coming in and exhibiting at the show. So my question to you is, not having that initial background of manufacturing and coming from the technology space, what sort of challenges did you face and how did you overcome those
Yeah.
um, to thrive in your role at CADDi?
Absolutely. I would say, you know, it manufacturing can be in mechanical engineering in general can be an intimidating space to enter if you don't have that technical background. I was lucky enough to work at a company that invested in its people. We literally had a program called We Speak Mechie when I first started out at that company before CADDi called Fictive. And my colleagues that I worked with that were mechanical engineers and had been in that world for a long time would sit down with the non-technical folks and teach them the basics of manufacturing and mechanical engineering. The company I was at was focused on CNC machining, 3D printing, urethane casting, injection molding, some sheet metal. And so those were kind of the manufacturing processes that they taught us about. And that kind of segued into product development, NPI. And so as a group, all the non-technical folks worked together to kind of learn these things really, really quickly so that we could be kind of dangerous in the rooms we needed to be dangerous in with executives and with mechanical engineers that knew the space quite well. So in sales, it's important to build confidence with folks. And if you don't know these things, it's really difficult to do that very quickly. So that trust factor and that emotional factor that we were talking about before, it's much easier if you have kind of these basics nailed down. And so, yeah, again, was just really lucky to work at a company where they took the time to invest in their people and teach folks how these things work. In addition to that, I think I have just natural curiosity, right? Looking at
Yeah.
YouTube videos, understanding, just how things are done, I think is fascinating. I was the kid that was obsessed with that show, How Things Are Made. So, yeah, that helped in kind of understanding things more quickly. Having that curiosity kind of drove me towards asking more questions and leaning into kind of scary conversations and challenges where I knew I didn't know what I needed to know, but I knew I could learn it if I cared enough, right? So, yeah.
I think that's another reason why I love this space too, because there's so much going on, and it's like being a kid in a candy store. You so many things going on, and there's so many different aspects to manufacturing that people don't even know about, like everyday things that we're using. A lot of people don't know how those things are made, but yeah, I love that show as well too. We do have Shannon coming in from New Hampshire, the Boston metro area, and then she said, love this idea, so many companies don't educate their non-engineering teams like this. I'm starting to see that more though, and maybe we can dive into that a little later in our conversation, but I'm starting to see more companies jump on that train of training their employees, especially the non-engineer side, because before, engineering and sales and marketing all used to be siloed, and now they're coming together to work together so that they can share their stories out. But let's talk about CADDi. Again, love the name. Think it's great. And you guys are about innovation and digital transformation. So can you give us a little bit of background information on CADDi Drawer and how it's really changing the way manufacturers are managing their data, and then get into what your role is to promote that?
Yeah, absolutely. And so we're a manufacturing insights platform. And what we do and what we kind of believe is that a lot of the answers of today are stored in historical data that's not leveraged properly, right? That comes in the form of technical drawings. So we basically are able to work with teams like engineering, procurement, sales, quality teams, and take the drawings that they work with every day, scan them into our system with our AI technology, and extract the data, and then turn that around to teams to actually use as an asset to improve the business. At a high level, we are also a search tool. A lot of teams, they're doing shoulder tapping, trying to figure out, hey, where do I find this? Have we done this before? Trying to work with their colleagues that have been at the company longer than they have to figure out, how can we do this, right? Is it possible? But our tool aims to, like kind of what you were saying before, remove silos and create kind of a database that anybody can tap into to do their job and feel empowered in their decisions.
Yeah.
And so what CADDi does is basically take all these drawings that are assets to the company, help the teams organize them and make them super easy to search for and accessible. And then that data that we've extracted from those drawings and data that we've brought in from other systems like your ERP or quality management system, you can then also report on that, turn it around and say, okay, I'm seeing trends in the business and therefore we should make a decision in whatever direction. So we are, a tech company, a software company, a data company, but we like to call ourselves a manufacturing insights company because there's so much information stored in drawings and the work that has already been done that isn't used properly. Right. So
yeah, and I think it's kind of cool because you're also really documenting that tribal knowledge that's been around for so long. So, me coming from not knowing how they were documented before or how they were like saved, what were traditional ways of keeping this information or saving it in businesses? Is it like like me, my old self is picturing a metal file cabinet and you have to
Hey, you're not that far off. You are actually pretty spot on with some businesses. Some of the manufacturers that we work with have been around for decades and they do oftentimes have paper files that they are yet to digitize. You'd be surprised how many companies are still kind of operating in that world. A lot of folks have digitized and began creating digital drawings rather, and they're storing them in relatively organized folders that aren't incredibly searchable, where they're often having to maybe tab out 10, 15 drawings at a time and really kind of scour what they can remember, working from memory. And that is really difficult. They're relying on their colleagues that, again, have been at the company for maybe a decade or 2 decades or more to figure out where things are and what's been done before. And like you were saying, that historical knowledge, what if that person wants to go on vacation or retire or they move on to a different company? That business is then kind of handicapped when they can't rely on that knowledge, right? So our tool aims to eliminate that risk and make information more accessible to everybody.
That's really good. And you can integrate with other types of software then that's already been collecting kind of that data?
So we actually work with our customers to pull data from their existing systems. And if that can be, typically exported in a CSV file, we do what we call data linking to bring that into our system. And we associate it with the drawings that we've ingested to kind of process in our system. Yeah.
That's really cool. So then how do you tie automation into the process of transforming manufacturing operations? And I have a couple other questions about the actual technology behind this, but how do you tie automation into it?
Yeah, so I think automation is kind of a hot topic right now and across the industry. We've got a lot of companies seeking to find efficiencies and do less or do more with less rather. A lot of companies are feeling that pressure. How I think about automation and where a lot of companies are kind of focusing is looking at tasks that maybe humans are doing today that are, redundant or repetitive, or even dangerous, that they can create automation around so that those humans can turn around and do more substantive work and begin solving problems in other areas versus doing repetitive work that's not super beneficial or necessary for a human to do. So that's kind of where I see automation going initially. Obviously, AI plays a role in this.
Yeah.
And the world is our oyster and what we want to automate, and it's moving very quickly. But yeah, I think those initial steps into automation with a lot of teams, it's like, okay, what part of the process is incredibly inefficient or time consuming that we can automate so that we can find, cost savings, time savings, and then we can repurpose our, intelligent people doing more intelligent things, right? So it's kind of the way I see it going. But, at places like IMTS and Automate and these trade shows where you see these companies doing incredible things, again, there's so many possibilities.
Where do you see the biggest impact that CADDi's having? Is it with small to medium-sized businesses, or are you seeing more of an impact in larger corporation settings?
It's both. I would say we typically work with companies that have a minimum of 10,000 drawings. That's typically mid-sized to larger enterprise businesses. We work with companies that they have drawings in the millions, though. So the more drawings, the better, because the more data in, the better, and the more we can kind of gather about the business and gain insights on. So we work with different size companies, and we're cloud-based. So there's really no limit to the number of drawings that we can work with. But yeah, some of our customers, I would say, are kind of smaller to mid-market, and we have also customers that are enterprise-size companies.
Do you have a specific use case that you could share with us, if not under an NDA, or be vague about it at least?
Yeah. Let me think. I really like our procurement use case, where it's basically, we're supply chain folks. They are under particular pressure to save on cost, right? So our tool allows them to basically scrutinize their supply chain and ask questions about how their suppliers are behaving. They can more easily get a snapshot of what their supply chain is doing and begin supplier negotiations with raw data that they can say, hey, supplier A down the street is quoting 25% less than what you're quoting. You guys are quoting these same projects. What's going on here? You're a mile away, right? Why is price what it is, and what's driving this cost, and where can you meet me, right? So that use case, I think, is really powerful and has an immediate impact on cost and the actual product for a customer. So that's one of my favorites. We have, many use cases between engineering, quality, procurement, and sales. Different teams. Our tool is meant to be used cross-functionally. It's meant to bridge the gap between teams and help them operate with better communication and the same information in front of them. So does that answer your question? Or are you looking for a specific account?
No, that's a perfect example. And one of the things that a lot of people, so AI comes up a lot, and automation comes up a lot because of workforce, right? Like, we aren't going to have enough people. So is there a way that you're approaching workforce development with CADDi, especially now when people are talking about digital tools reshaping the manufacturing landscape? Like, how are you guys approaching that specific topic?
What we keep hearing from leaders is that skilled labor is becoming harder and harder to acquire. And it's difficult to not only find the labor that they need in manufacturing, but retain those folks. And what our tool can kind of help mitigate risk on is that knowledge base, right? If you have this information stored in a system versus it being, reliant on one individual or a few individuals that work at a company have been there forever, then when you do get that skilled talent, they can be onboarded more efficiently and more effectively because that information is in one place that they can access, right? You're not reliant on, the engineer or the engineering leader that's been there for 20 years and they kind of hold the keys to the castle, so to speak. That can be really difficult to, knowledge share and bring that person kind of up to speed if it's all stored upstairs, right? It's it's easier if you have a platform where they can access the information that they need more quickly, and it can be used as an enablement tool to train folks and to bring even younger, less seasoned individuals kind of up to speed more quickly.
Yeah. Well, and they adapt to things quicker anyways when it comes to technology stuff. And it's just hilarious because some of the older engineers that I've come in contact with when I do technical writing, some of them are really cranky when you first talk to them. So like trying to get that information out of them, it was quite the challenge because they were just like, I don't want to talk to you. Like, why? Who are you? You're like marketing. You don't care about what I do. So seeing all of these stories come out about different solutions to get that tribal knowledge has been really exciting for me, just because I like talking to the engineers and getting that information from them. So Mavens, I know everybody knows what my niche is, and I really like celebrating women who are in leadership positions because one of the recent stats that are out there is 1 in 4 leaders in manufacturing in the United States are women. And I'm competitive, so I want to like get that as even as possible, or like beat out the guys, not like completely kick them out, but just
No, I'm with you. I'm right there.
Get ahead of them a little bit and give them a run for their money, I like to say. So how does CADDi really create a supportive environment for women in tech specifically? Because even in engineering, we only represent like 13% globally in engineering. So spaces in tech is really hard for us to find women in leadership roles. How does CADDi support that?
Well, I mean, the fact that I'm in the role that I'm in, then they sought me out, that I think speaks volumes. The culture and the support that I have at CADDi is great, and I think that they care deeply about diversity and putting people in positions of leadership and kind of trusting them to do incredible work. And I think putting people up for opportunities like that again speaks volumes. And yeah, I've felt super supported at this company, and I've been very lucky in previous companies to have other female leadership to kind of look up to and have as mentors as well. It's super important to have that representation, and to feel safe and comfortable asking, "Hey, how did you get there? What were the steps that you took? And what can I do to maybe mirror that or carve out my own path?" Right. So that is huge, and I can't undersell the importance of representation. It is huge to be able to feel confident and kind of walk in your own path and yeah, create the career that you want. Right? It's not easy.
Before we get into that conversation of mentorship, Shannon's leaving some comments. At an old job, we had a trailer with thousands of hand-drawn drawings filed away in there. A trailer?
Oh my gosh.
I'm wondering.
You're not the first to tell me that. I talk to people all the time when we're kind of selling CADDi that have very similar experiences. And yeah, I feel for you. And that digitization is so key. So you don't have to, go through thousands of files manually. It does not sound fun to do.
That's really interesting now, because I'm thinking of all of the trailers that I've seen at former manufacturing companies I worked at. Now I'm wondering what was in there. Like, is it all filing cabinets? And then she said, how do you get around dealing with certain employees who intentionally keep their knowledge to themselves as a form of job protection?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say there are some, it's pretty kind of rare that we've run into that. Most of the folks that we talk to that are kind of on the edge of retiring and they're kind of on their way out, a lot of those folks, they really want the company to prosper and do well and it be kind of their legacy after they leave. So most are really kind of intrigued with this knowledge transfer and making the work that they've done their whole career accessible to the next generation. So I would say most people are very receptive to that. What I would say to navigate with folks that are less receptive is, those people, they want to go on vacation. They don't want to just, have work be their entire life. And also, if their head is in the right place, hopefully they don't want the business to be debilitated when they do decide to leave or go on vacation, right? So, that's a tough one, but I'd say to give those folks a break, you need a system where it's not just reliant on their knowledge and everything that they've acquired throughout their career. And helping others is something I hope most people want to do. So, but yeah, that's a good question. I'm sure that some people with, emerging tech and just all the things kind of at play in the industry right now do worry about job security and retaining their role and remaining useful, right? That's a totally valid question.
Right. But with the whole vacation point, I know a lot of people that have gone on vacation and they keep their phone on simply for work. Right? No, turn it off. Like, ignore your emails, turn off your phone, don't respond. You're on vacation. You deserve that time. But it's really hard for people to do that sometimes. So to get back to mentorship and representation, you know, I've met a lot of women who have entered in this sector by accident or from different industries. And then I've met some younger generation women who are kind of,
Mhm.
I don't want to say scared or unsure if
Right.
maybe this is the pathway for them. So do you have like any specific advice that you would give them in terms of
Absolutely.
follow
Yeah.
their career path?
Yeah. And I would say whenever I was making my segue from just strictly tech and kind of the software world in Silicon Valley into a very manufacturing focused space, I had reservations myself. I was lucky enough to have some really awesome female executives at the company I was heading into. That was a reason, honestly, why I joined the company. I wanted to see myself reflected in leadership. And so I think when you're vetting a company and you're looking at, what that company does and who leads that company, vetting those leaders and seeing female leadership at the top, I think is one way to figure out, if that company is for you.
Yeah.
Um, I was specifically looking for that, right? And those executives, their backgrounds really impressed me, and they, not surprisingly, were incredibly approachable once I did join the company, and were excited about helping me and doing some of that mentorship role. I've also had male mentors. I've absolutely admired a lot of the men that I've worked with and have been super impressed by their backgrounds and their ability to bring products to market. And I think you can lean into lots of different types of mentorship. It doesn't necessarily even have to be at work, right? I've had
Right.
mentors in education as well, where, you can find inspiration really anywhere. But I think when you're evaluating a career path or even a company that you want to go to, you ideally should have somebody that inspires you that's at the leadership level that you can lean into and say, hey, I'm really curious about your path. How did you do it? And here's my goals for my career and where I see that trajectory going. Let's talk through different possibilities, right?
Yeah.
Everybody, I think, has a very different path. And it's easy to look at somebody else's path and say, I want to replicate that. But in reality, nobody has the same path. And you have to carve your own path out, and you have to, figure out what you care about and what drives you. So, asking questions of those leaders and really kind of asking for help, I think, is critical. You're not going to have a mentor just kind of fall in your lap and it happens, right? You have to ask for help, and nobody does anything alone. We all have to rely on each other. It's kind of like the interconnectedness of life that's so beautiful. So I think asking for help is critical, but specifically of those people that fascinate you and inspire you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I learned just like 2 or 3 years ago that you could ask someone to be your mentor. And I was like, no way. Like, are you serious? That was like a big learning experience for me because I was always like, I was one of those individuals that was like, oh, they're just gonna fall in my lap. And that rarely happens. And I was also advised whatever skill set you're trying to improve, ask someone who has like
Yeah.
that skill set and ask them to mentor you because then you can learn from them on
Right.
how to like
That
achieve
goes
that.
back to admiring someone or being inspired by their work. It's like, wow, you do that incredibly well. How do you do it? Right.
Yeah.
And that can be, it's really flattering to ask people of that. So it won't come off as weird or awkward. Most people are like, oh, thank you so much for seeing that I do something incredibly well. Right.
Yeah.
So I think when there are a lot of people that are maybe hesitant or scared of asking for help or saying to somebody that they admire their career path, it never once has come off, at least in the circumstances that those conversations I've had, as intimidating or odd. It's usually they are flattered and they want to help. So
Yeah.
that's typically been my experience. Yeah.
Daniel goes, great advice. I've learned so much from people on LinkedIn just by asking for help. That's a great channel. So let's talk about that. Like, because, manufacturing with all of the new technology that's coming out and automation and digital transformation, things are advancing fairly quickly, like more so than what people can keep up with. And I mean, there is this conversation around continuous learning and improvement and upskilling and retraining. What are some of the things that you do personally to really keep ahead of these trends that are happening? And how are you applying that information to CADDi? Like, how does CADDi as a whole keep up with what's going on in industry so that you guys are always developing something innovative?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say for me personally, LinkedIn is an excellent resource. YouTube is also a very excellent resource. You know, following folks like yourself, thought leaders in the industry, and hearing about industry trends is huge. Following different topics on social media to kind of keep up with what, you know, what's to come. You know, additive comes to mind. That is a very quickly moving technology that has, you know, in, you know, the years that I've been in manufacturing, I would argue is like the fastest moving technology. AI right now is kind of like the hot ticket item. So all of these topics you can kind of follow online and, you know, get into the different conversations about what's in development and what's to come, and why different technologies are being created. I think understanding the why and understanding kind of the application of these technologies helps kind of connect the dots. At least for me, it does. CADDi in general, we're lucky to have a stellar team of folks that have their finger on the pulse. We have an amazing marketing team that they're always kind of trying to not only be a thought leader in the space, and we've got webinars and stuff going on all the time, but they create content that our customers want and is linked to not only manufacturing and AI, but other industry trends. So yeah, I'd say we've got a lot of people at our company that care about these topics, and we're able to kind of figure out what our customers want and kind of anticipate what's to come. But yeah, there's so many resources online these days between LinkedIn and all the social media platforms that you can't actually escape it, right? Like AI it feels like it's in every tool that we use now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
It's
it's everywhere.
it's a great time to be in manufacturing, and I'm super excited to see how that continues to progress, because I feel like some people are getting a little annoyed with the term AI because it's used all the time everywhere, and everybody's like, just come up with a new term already for this thing. But it's going to be very important, especially with all of the data that we're collecting and how we make sense of that data. And you know, with CADDi, you know, what are some of the hesitations that maybe customers have shared with you in terms of like adapting some of these technologies? Because it is a lot of data. And if you're a small to medium-sized company, you might not have, or you might think you might not have the manpower to handle all that. How do those conversations go?
And that was actually one other thing I didn't mention is kind of learning about industry trends. A lot of the education around that comes as well from customers, right? Them telling you their challenges or other solutions that they're seeking out. That often uncovers kind of knowledge about what's to come or what's needed in the industry. These customer conversations and the pain points that they're experiencing, they're informing a lot of how these AI and other technology products are being made. And so those conversations are really helpful in kind of keeping your finger on the pulse as well. I would say with teams that are, so the question was what teams that are hesitant about AI or emerging technology, how they handle the new technology.
Yeah, how do you handle those conversations with those customers who might be a little hesitant to adapt some of these tools? Because not every company wants to invest in some of these tools because they don't really know what to expect.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say it can be a sticky subject, especially with some of the older manufacturers that are old school that, yeah, they are hesitant to adopt new technology. A lot of these folks, though, they're going to trade shows. They're going to, you know, these spaces where it's unavoidable. They have to kind of face that technology is here to stay, and if they don't adopt it, they might fall behind or their business might fail. So a lot of these folks, they're coming to this realization where it's like, okay, we actually need to kind of step into the future and adopt new technology in order to stay relevant and scale the business, right? some of them are not willing to change and are absolutely okay with the status quo, and they might, just have their same kind of book of business and operate with what they have for the foreseeable future. But many manufacturers are realizing, wow, we're not going to be able to keep up unless we adopt some type of automation or technology that helps us do more with less, right? That is kind of, unfortunately, the motto right now. They have to figure out, with the resources that we have, how can we do what we're doing more efficiently or scale and do more? And a lot of that is going to come from these emerging technologies that help them do just that. I would also say that resistance to change, how I approach it is I kind of stay away from the technology conversation to begin with and talk more about, okay, what are the challenges that you're facing and how can we solution those problems and figure out, a smart way to kind of tackle them. Leading with the technology and kind of shoving that down folks' throats is not the approach for a lot of manufacturers. You really need to kind of empathize with them and talk through, what is the source of this problem? What is creating the bottleneck? And what solution can we implement to help you, right?
I like that approach, because I like to compare it to going to the doctor's office and they're telling you every freaking term that they learned in medical school. Like, you're just sitting there like, wait, am I dying? Like, are you telling me I'm dying or I have something really wrong with me? And it's not dumbing it down. It's like you said, empathizing it with them so that they can understand it.
Exactly.
Daniel made something really, just keep it positive because AI is.
You're not wrong. You're correct.
Like, we're listening now. Well, Erin, what are you most excited about with CADDi? Like, what can we expect in the future with you guys? And are there any exciting projects that you're working on now that you can share with us?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very excited for us to kind of crack open this American market. We started out in Japan, and we've been in the US for a couple of years now, but people are starting to catch on to kind of the value of CADDi, and it's a super exciting time to be at the company. People are beginning to see the vision and what manufacturing insights can do for the company to kind of transform and take them into a new age of manufacturing. So I'm really, really pumped. We have a few things on our product roadmap that I'm not able to just speak freely about, but we are, an AI-driven company that is always trying to kind of develop our product and anticipate customer needs. So we've got some really, really interesting stuff coming in the next year or so. And yeah, we want to help basically manufacturers use all this enormous amount of work that they've done over the years and not let it sit dormant. You can actually leverage that and, address the problems of today with work that's already been done. So that's kind of what we believe at CADDi, and we know to be true because we've got some amazing customers already doing it. Yeah.
Super cool. Well, where are you headed to next? Because you were just recently at IMTS, which I can't believe was 3 weeks ago. Are there any other upcoming shows that you're going to be present at?
We're going to be at FabTech in Orlando in October. Are you going to be there?
I'm not. Okay. I'm actually going to be at Pack Expo, and then I'm also doing another event in Tennessee, I believe. So I will not be in Orlando, unfortunately.
That's all right. Yeah, we're really excited about FabTech. It should be, I think, a similar, not as big as IMTS, but pretty large in scale. And I think most of our team is going to be there, kind of getting the good word out about CADDi. So we're excited to go over to Florida and hang out with folks. Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier too that you do a bunch of webinars. Do you have any webinars coming out that people should be aware of?
We do weekly webinars. So if you follow CADDi on LinkedIn, we post about those. And yeah, it's a wide range of topics from AI to manufacturing to engineering. Super useful for all of the folks that would use our tool. So it's not just engineering, it's definitely quality, definitely procurement, definitely sales folks that, different roles in manufacturing that can get use out of those webinars. We create a lot of really great content. Yeah.
I'm going to have to get on that train of attending some of your webinars just for educational purposes because it helps with my technical writing. Well, before I let you go, Erin, I want to give you a chance to really ask our audience a question. So if you had one ask for our audience, what would your big ask be? If you can't think of one, you can do a call to action as well too, if that's easier for, because I know some people with that
question for the audience. I guess what's exciting or I guess even scary about what's happening in manufacturing right now. I always like to hear kind of people's take on that. Yeah,
I like the scary question because everybody hypes manufacturing up, but there are some things that are like, oh wait, if we do that, is this going to happen, and how is the end result going to be of that? So I like that question. Well, Erin, it was really great talking to you, and I'm super excited for CADDi. Everybody that I met on your team has been really passionate, and you really believe in the product that that you have for people, which is exciting for me because I feel like some companies are really bad at sharing their story, and it's like, no, you have to get people hyped up if you want them to believe in what you're selling. So I really appreciate it. Erin is a great guy. I met him at IMTS. He joined us in the Creators Lounge. So super excited to see how you guys continue to grow and help manufacturing out. How do people get a hold of you, and what's the quickest way to get in touch with you if they have any questions?
LinkedIn. Yeah, I'm very easy to get in contact with on LinkedIn. That's going to be the best place to contact me.
Awesome. Well, Erin, thank you so much for joining us today. To all of the people who tuned in and commented, appreciate you. I hope you have a great weekend. And Erin, I hope I meet you one day in person.
Yes, we will. I'm sure we'll cross paths. Thank you so much, Megan, for having me. This was super fun.
Well, tune in because I got a quick message from Fresh Horizon. If you're looking to put some spice in your branding and your merchandise, Fresh Horizon is a great company. Do that. They're family owned. They're in my town of Beloit, Wisconsin. So that's why I hold them dear to my heart. So stay tuned for that. And I hope you guys have a great weekend. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
This episode of Mavens has been sponsored by Fresh Horizons Group. Fresh Horizons Group is a family-run company that was founded on the premise of helping organizations and businesses better tell their story through high-quality branded apparel and promotional items. Freshen up your brand by contacting Fresh Horizons today at freshhorizonsgroup.com.